Hey everybody, welcome back to Drug Talk. As always, I'm your host, Garrett Campbell. Today we're going to be discussing something different than a medication, and we're going to be talking about something that I'm very excited about that I want to share with you, in that this is the first year that I've had without having a manic episode that required hospitalization. So I've shared a couple videos over the last year and a half or so, kind of touching on my bipolar disorder and discussing different medications that I use to treat bipolar disorder. But today I just want to go over a few things that I've managed to do to keep myself out of the hospital for a full year. So May 1st was the official date that marked 1 year of not being in the hospital. This time last year, I was just getting out of the hospital. And it really does give me a big feeling of relief just to know that I finally made it through 1 year. And now that I've made it through a year, there's nothing to say I can't make it through multiple years and kind of have a brighter future. So I did mention in one of my other videos talking about depression that I did have a depressed episode or a depressed phase of bipolar from about October into November and December, a little bit of March. But that was the only really trouble I had with my bipolar disorder this year. There were a couple times where I had to use an antipsychotic known as Loxapine. If I felt my thoughts racing or had trouble sleeping, I would just take that for about 10 nights and then get back on track. But I didn't have to receive hospitalization like I mentioned. I didn't have to go to my physician to talk about signs of mania. I just kind of kept it within my family and we handled everything very well. So I guess the big question is, what did I do to remain episode free for a year? Well, the first thing would be to stay on my medication as directed by my physician. So I'm currently using Zeldox or ziprasidone, which is an antipsychotic, using 40 milligrams twice daily of this medication. And I'm also using Lithium daily, 1,050 milligrams at bedtime. These two medications are really in place to prevent me from having manic episodes and to really keep me level. The lithium is also a mood stabilizer for me, so it should be keeping me from getting depressed as well as becoming manic. But like I did mention, I did have a depressed episode this year, but it wasn't too prolonged, and we were able to come out of that with Wellbutrin or bupropion. The second thing I did was using Loxapine as needed, like I mentioned. So this medication, I consider it personally, just due to the side effects that I have from it, as a heavy antipsychotic. In that when I use this medication, it really does knock me out when I get in bed. I wake up the next morning with a drug hangover, things like that. So this medication, whenever I did go through a phase where I was feeling a little amped up, high energy, maybe overconfident, just early signs of mania kind of creeping in, I would use this medication for about 10 days at bedtime, 20 milligrams, and that would kind of reset. And I could feel the difference in my mind. It would really reset everything and just put me back on track. The third thing that I did to remain out of the hospital was really be open with my wife, my sister, my aunt, different members of my family. So like I said, when I was having those thoughts, those early signs of mania, I would tell everybody right away. I would call them, I would text them, and we would formulate a plan of whether I had to go see my physician, whether we thought we could just increase the medication, whether we thought I needed a different medication. We would just have an open discussion, and they would keep tabs on me almost, just to make sure that nothing was escalating and nothing was getting further into the course of mania. And we could, like I said, formulate a plan to make sure I didn't have to end up in the hospital. Now, the fourth thing that I did, it's a little tough talking about this on camera, but it is something that I had an issue with in the past that I think I will make a video eventually when I feel more comfortable discussing it. But the fourth thing that I did, which I think is the biggest change that kept me out of the hospital, is staying away from cannabis. So this is something that I used in the past, but it more so became a problem when I was hypomanic. I would develop this craving for cannabis, and I would use it quite often, and that would typically push me into the next phase of mania, and then use more, and that would push me into psychosis. So completely staying away from cannabis since my last hospitalization seems to have made a big change in how my body responds to the seasons and how mania comes through this time of year. So March and April were the two big months that I was very nervous about. This is when I would typically start to have feelings or symptoms of mania. But this year, it was just a couple nights where I had to take Loxapine, and that was it. So again, leading up into March and April, I had a lot of anxiety. I had to use clonazepam quite often to kind of tame that anxiety. Just with that fear of, oh my God, here we go again. I'm coming up to the 1 year mark. I've never done it before. I feel like I'm going to end up in the hospital again. And the anxiety would almost make things worse. It would give me that more energy. But like I said, I managed to just use Loxapine and get through March and April. Now it's May, so I can just look forward to the summer and enjoy myself. The fifth thing that I did that was different from previous years was I went to see a psychologist about once every 2 weeks, especially during the months leading up to March and April, where I was more nervous about becoming manic. And we could just have open 1 hour conversations, discuss how I'm feeling, and she could kind of keep tabs on me each session to session, comparing kind of the conversations I would want to engage in with previous sessions. Now, we did start when I was in a bout of depression, so obviously my attitude and the stuff that we talked about changed from session to session. But she was able to just, like I said, keep tabs on me and make sure that nothing I was discussing was too far out there or too grandiose. Nothing that seemed like mania was coming into play. So using those 5 things really helped me stay out of the hospital. And honestly, now I kind of feel like I'm in a weird place in that I've been so worried for the last year about having another episode. Now making it past that 1 year mark, I really do feel like the future is brighter, not to sound corny, but it really does feel like that for me. So if I'm kind of in a place where I feel like I can take a step back in terms of worrying, still do those 5 things that I mentioned and still do everything I can to remain out of hospital, but maybe get back to enjoying life a little bit more and just letting some of the worry subside. So if you're watching this and you have bipolar disorder, I hope you find those 5 tips helpful and maybe you can incorporate some of those into your life and it'll help you stay out of the hospital. I will say if you can fight to get through that 1 year, it really does build your confidence and give you that feeling that you can repeat that process and make it multiple years without requiring hospitalization. All right, that's all I really wanted to talk about today, everybody. I just wanted to give you guys an update into my experience with bipolar disorder. And I like making these videos from time to time just to better connect with you guys. Make sure that I'm not just a pharmacist talking about medication, but medication are a part of my life as well. And just kind of give you guys an inside look into my life in terms of medication. So if you guys like the video, you can like the video, share the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, all those great things. And I'll see you next time. Take care.